So a lot of people are still quite mystified as to what exactly Gamergate is. Just give us a brief definition.
Well, Gamergate is about a push to use video games to socially engineer people, and it's also about corruption among video game journalists. The word Gamergate is a twist on Watergate. And how this unfolded was gamers began to notice that popular game review websites were promoting these obscure indie games by unknown people that were just basically bad games. And they all seemed to push a political agenda as well. And with a little digging, they found out that the game developers of these games were just rich kids with no talent that had connections with these video game journalists. And obviously, gamers who care about gaming began to complain about this corruption. And suddenly, all of these journalists came out and said, gamers are dead and the industry should no longer produce video games with the consumer in mind.
So this
And
is
this is
about
how gaming
pushing the
began.
political agenda. Why it's important is because video games are the biggest entertainment industry on the planet. They're bigger than movies. They're bigger than 3 times more than its equivalent in the cinema, Avatar versus modern day, whereas video game industry makes over $46 billion a year. This is why it's important, because a lot of people are influenced by the content and the narrative of these video games, which makes it extremely chilling that people would insert their own extremist, radical political dogma into video games. And that's what's happened and what's come to light through this Gamergate scandal.
Well, I think these individuals who are trying to push this political agenda already control a lot of media. They clearly already control the news. They control movies through Hollywood, the music industry as well. They promote the individuals that they want. This is pure nepotism, but also the cultural Marxist ideology that they want also is seen all across sitcoms and movies and films. So the point is, however, that video games is a media that they don't completely control. There is some control over it, but clearly by these game developers not being in control of the industry, this is the problem that they are trying to undo by causing the game industry to come under their control rather than produce games that gamers would like.
And this is one of the criticisms levelled at the pro-Gamergate crowd, the people who exposed this scandal, by the anti-Gamergaters, is that Gamergate is this AstroTurf grand conspiracy backed by the patriarchy, because we know that a lot of this social engineering, these messages being fed. But actually, if you look at it, it's the anti-Gamergate crowd, the people who have been exposed. They're the establishment. It comes back to the point again that feminism, third wave feminism, is the establishment. And you look at somebody like Anita Sarkeesian, who has released these, 5 or 6 videos. It took her 3 years to release 5 or 6 videos after receiving $160,000 in donations. She's made all these videos. She's getting, TED Talks, found patriarchal conspiracy. And just get into how the media has reported on this issue. Complete bias, complete ignorance of the facts and the true fundamental issue, what's going on here, which is the subversion of the video game industry. The media's made it all about threats and harassment received by Anita Sarkeesian and people like that.
Well, absolutely. As soon as the Gamergate scandal began to break out and basically a email ring amongst journalists who were talking amongst each other about how they would need to happen was this fake bomb threat against anyone who are complaining about corruption just happened to be all about harassing her personally. And
this is bullshit, because anyone in the public eye, no matter what political dogma they are pushing or they represent, get violent threats. I get violent threats every week, mainly from social justice warriors and liberals, because they're the most intolerant, bullying people on the planet, even though they preach tolerance. And, I get the occasional death threat. I've posted them on Twitter many times. And obviously you get the same for your activism in regards to Syria and other issues. But the problem is the media's reporting it as if all the threats and harassment are coming from the Gamergate crowd. Yet it obviously goes both ways. In any of these public issues, threats and harassment goes both ways. And there's an example which I saw just a couple of days ago. Pillars of Eternity, this video game, I haven't played it, but it's a quite new video game that's been released by this basically a poem which was making a joke about how he slept with a man by mistake. This offended these trans feminists and these other feminists that got offended over this. They complained, demanded that it be changed within the video game, and yet you go to their Twitter account, and I'll show this up on. These are some of the people complaining about the Gamergate crowd, and yet they espouse the most violent hatred, hateful rhetoric imaginable, and yet the media says that it's all Gamergate people doing that.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, we've both had death threats, but when have the media just like plastered the death threats that we've gotten all over the place? Never, because we're not one of the chosen nepotism-backed people who are supporting the agenda of the establishment. So, you know, as you said, the media is completely biased, that gamers are misogynists. You know, the thing is, these gamers were normally apolitical people, and what they thought that they were exposing was just bias in game journalism. And what they actually found was the nepotism and the bias was actually, and it shocked a lot of people actually into becoming more active, which is a good thing.
And the point is, the Gamergate community, or the video game community in general, is one of the most diverse on the planet. Black people, women, you know, lesbians, gays, whatever. It's one of the most diverse communities on the planet, and yet they're all being castigated as misogynists and hateful. They had a hashtag, Not Your Shield. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Not Your Shield was basically all of the, so women, people of different races, you know, it's just basically childish propaganda. And it's totally ridiculous because it ignores the fact that women have been making and playing games for decades without being harassed. In fact, some of the most popular video games ever made were made by women. For example, Portal and Mirror's Edge. If gamers didn't like women developing games, then why would these games be popular? The difference is these games that the women made weren't injected with a third wave feminist cultural Marxist agenda. They were just good games that people enjoyed playing. And that's why the establishment media don't want to report the fact that women have always been inside the gaming industry and inside video game culture.
And they also, as part of this subversion, they put out their own video. I mean, you're an avid video gamer. I'm not, but you're well positioned to comment on this. But who was it that released the Depression Quest video game? Tell us about that.
I believe that was Quinn, Zoe Quinn. Yes.
And it was terrible.
Well, I heard it was terrible, and I actually had to